Want to know why? Ask how. Howard the Humongous. A recent piece of research from New York University shows something disturbing. A CNN headline sums up the research findings like this: regular peddlers of right-wing misinformation have more success on Facebook than right-wing sources that offer users reliable information. Yes, you heard that right. Right-wing peddlers of lies have more success online than right-wing peddlers of facts. Why should this be true? Why should right-wing sources peddling slander and fantasy outrank right-wing sources that try to stick to facts? Shouldn't truth win out over falsehood every time? Truth has won out over lies time and time again in my life. Why isn't this true on Facebook? For a week, I pondered this question. I pondered it on my walks. I pondered it while I was working, and I pondered it while I was on the phone with my girlfriend. After all, as the author of 7 books on the madness of crowds, certainly I should be able to answer this question, right? But I couldn't. Meanwhile, there was a phrase that lingered in the corridors of my mind. We humans are a species uniquely fascinated by fiction. And that fascination with fiction seemed to relate. Then, after a week of wrestling with the question of why fantasy disguised as news won out over verifiable fact, the answer hit me. Supernormal stimuli. What are supernormal stimuli? Here's how I told the story in my new book, Einstein, Michael Jackson, and Me, A Search for Soul in the Power Pits of Rock and Roll. In the 1940s and 1950s, Nico Tinbergen studied herring gulls on the cliffs of Walney Island off the west coast of England. Herring gulls are seabirds. They fly out over the ocean to scoop up fish. To minimize their commute, their nests are on the flats just a few feet inland from the tops of cliffs overlooking the sea. Those nests are wide and shallow. So when a seagull comes home, enters her nest, and wriggles to position herself on her eggs, she often shoves an egg outside the low, curved hump that passes for the wall of her nest. Tinbergen noticed that mother gulls stick out their beaks to recover an escaped egg, then tuck those beaks in toward their necks over and over again to move the wayward egg back into the nest. Tinbergen figured that the tucking might be a simple reflex. He guessed that reflexes are triggered by simple stimuli, and he wondered what those stimuli might be. So the mean researcher started to put egg-like objects near the escaped eggs to see if any would do a better job of stimulating the mother than the real egg. Turned out that Tinbergen could make colorful and spotted eggs that were more egg-like than the real thing. How could Tinbergen tell? When he put one of these artificial eggs next to the real deal, next to the mother's very own live biological egg with her very own private personal offspring, gestating inside, the herring gull mom chose to scoop up the phony egg and to tuck, tuck, tuck until that phony egg was safely in her nest, ignoring her own egg. Tinbergen had made a super egg. He had fashioned a first supernormal stimulus, a trigger that sets off a reflex better than the real thing. And herring gulls were not the only species suckered by supernormal stimuli. Tinbergen tricked songbirds into ignoring their own eggs and rolling in black polka dot DayGlo blue dummies so large that the birds constantly slid off of them and had to climb back on. And he lured gray-lag geese into ignoring their own eggs and trying to roll in a basketball. All journalists try to fashion supernormal stimuli. All try to fashion hooks and headlines, like the volleyballs that act as super eggs. But factual right-wing journalists have a handicap. Most of them feel tied to fact-checking. They feel tied to making sure that the news at the core of their messages is true. But in the post-Trump era, many right-wing disinformationists don't feel tied to provable facts at all. After all, the disinformationist's role model and master, Donald Trump, told roughly 20 lies a day during his years in the White House. Lies that were crafted to hit our hot buttons. Lies that were super normal stimuli. For example, we are born with us versus them instincts. Those instincts drive us to form a group of insiders, to make sure we are part of that in-group, then to spot a group of outsiders. We are born to suppress forbidden feelings when we're inside our group, but to project those forbidden emotions on to the outsiders. We are born to imagine that our rejected feelings are alive and writhing in the minds of the outsiders. And we are built to blame those outsiders for every frustration in our lives. We are built to attack those outsiders for all we're worth. Adolf Hitler showed this pattern when he targeted the Jews as the outsiders, the villains to blame, for every problem in German society, and for every problem in your personal life and mine. There was a final solution for all these woes and griefs, said Hitler. Exterminate the Jews. This is the primal pattern with which Donald Trump started his campaign for president on June 16th of 2015. He used it when he came down the escalator at Trump Tower and claimed that immigrants from Mexico were rapists and murderers. He used it when he told that lie. It stuck because it was a supernormal stimulus for us and them instincts and for our need to scapegoat. And it was a lie that appealed directly to our need to project our own sex and our own violence onto scapegoats. But Trump's lie about Mexican immigrants isn't true. There is less rape and murder in Mexican-American communities in the United States than in communities of those of us whose families have been here for generations. But like the polka-dotted, DayGlo, and volleyball-sized eggs, it isn't the truth that matters. It's the exaggeration that turns a claim into a supernormal stimulus. Remember the phrase that bugged me for a week. It doesn't say we are a species with a special addiction to fact. It says we are a species with a special fondness for fiction. The right-wing disinformationists of our era are some of the most influential creators of fiction on this planet. This is Howard Bloom, speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make. Or, want to know why? Ask how. And now for the sleazy, slimy, seditious, sedulent, soporific, little supernatural off button.